By the end of these 20 minutes, you'll have a concrete tiered stack you can actually run. The bottom tier is zero-cost habits, and those do most of the heavy lifting. Above that sit affordable supplements with real human data behind them. Then there's the experimental stuff I watch but haven't committed to yet. I'll also tell you what I tried and quietly dropped, so you don't spend money on the same mistakes I made. Let me say one thing before we get into it. I'm not a doctor, and nothing here is medical advice. I'm someone who reads too many papers and tests things on his own body. Talk to your doctor before you touch anything that ends with a milligram on the label. Let us start with the biology, because the word reverse gets thrown around a lot. Aging is not one broken thing that we can unscrew and replace with a spare. Researchers describe it as a bundle of about 12 overlapping processes. The canonical paper is called The Hallmarks of Aging by Lopez Oten and colleagues. It is the map most serious researchers work from. 4 of these 12 hallmarks matter most for what you actually feel. Those 4 drive most of what you feel when you say you feel old. The first hallmark is cellular senescence. Some of your cells stop dividing and then refuse to die on schedule. They sit around in your tissue and leak inflammatory signals into everything nearby. Scientists sometimes call them zombie cells. That name fits, because that is exactly how they behave. When enough of these zombie cells pile up in a tissue, you start to feel it in your joints. You also feel it in how slowly you recover from a hard week. The second hallmark is NAD+ decline. NAD+ is a molecule your cells use to make energy and to repair damaged DNA. By the time you hit around 50, your NAD+ levels can sit at roughly half of what they were at 20. That picture is tissue dependent though, not the same for everyone. Researchers still argue about how universal that decline really is. Lower NAD+ simply means slower repair, and slower repair means more damage sticks around instead of getting fixed. The third hallmark is mTOR dysregulation. mTOR is a growth switch that sits inside every cell in your body. When mTOR stays flipped on all day, your cells prioritize building over cleaning. The cleaning process is called autophagy, and autophagy is how your cells recycle their own broken parts. When mTOR never gets a rest, the cellular trash slowly piles up. The fourth hallmark is epigenetic drift. Your DNA sequence stays mostly fixed as you age, while which genes get read out loud in each cell keeps shifting. Chemical marks called methyl groups sit on top of your DNA and tell each cell what job to do. Over decades, those marks get sloppy. A skin cell starts running programs that a skin cell should not run. A liver cell forgets some of its liver job. That drift is what an epigenetic age test tries to measure by reading those metal marks. It is why 2 people with the same birthday can have very different biological ages. When people say reverse aging, they usually mean 2 things at once. Slow down these 4 processes going forward and clean up some of the mess that has already piled up. Think of it as nudging the biological number in the right direction. That's well short of turning an 80-year-old into a 20-year-old, and we can add healthy years onto the back end of a life. That is the honest goal, and everything in the rest of this video points at it. Now let us get to the tier that costs you nothing and pays the most. I call these the non-negotiables because the data on them is loud and consistent. If you skip this tier and jump straight to supplements, you are pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. The first non-negotiable is Zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 is the intensity, where you can still talk in full sentences, you just don't feel like it. Think a brisk walk on an incline, or an easy jog for someone already in shape. Peter Attia has been pounding this drum for years, and the actual data backs him up. A JAMA study by Mansagar and colleagues followed over 122,000 people through treadmill testing. The group with the highest cardiorespiratory fitness had a roughly 5-fold lower risk of death compared with the lowest fitness group. That's a full lifestyle level effect on how long you actually live, far beyond anything a supplement could deliver. My own protocol is 3 sessions of Zone 2 per week, 45 to 60 minutes each. I do it on a stationary bike while I read papers or answer emails. It is the most productive block of my week, and it is training my mitochondria in the background. The second non-negotiable is sleep. I know, everyone says sleep, and most people tune the advice out, but here's why it actually matters to your biology. Your brain drains metabolic garbage through something called the glymphatic system while you sleep. Skip that window night after night, and the garbage stays in the neighborhood. My personal rule is a hard wind down at 10 p.m. every single night. I kill all screens by 9:30 at the latest, and I keep the bedroom under 20 degrees Celsius so my core temperature can actually drop. The third non-negotiable is resistance training. Muscle works as metabolic armor for the second half of your life, well beyond anything to do with vanity. A 2022 review by Mama and colleagues in the British Journal of Sports Medicine pooled 16 cohort studies on muscle strengthening activity. They found roughly a 10 to 17% lower risk of all-cause mortality in people who lifted regularly. Grip strength on its own predicts how long you will live, according to a large BMJ paper by Celis Morales in 2018. If your grip is weak, your odds are simply worse. And there is a striking study by De Brito in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology on the sit and rise test. People who could not lower themselves to the floor and stand back up without help had far higher mortality rates. People who did it cleanly fared much better. Think of it as a snapshot of how much functional capacity your body still has banked. I lift 3 times a week, and I keep the program boring on purpose. The menu is only compound movements. One day I focus on squats and pulls. The next lifting day I focus on hinges and presses. 20 to 30 working sets spread across the whole week is enough to make progress without wrecking my recovery. The fourth non-negotiable is a time-restricted feeding window. Rather than chasing magic fasting hours, this one is about giving mTOR a real break every single day. I run a 12-hour eating window on most days, and I stretch it to 14 or 16 hours on weekends. That window is enough to trigger some autophagy without wrecking my training. I do not believe in 20-hour fasts for people who also want to lift heavy. You will slowly lose the muscle that you just paid for in the gym. Match the fast to the goal and stop copying protocols from people who aren't training the way you train. The fifth non-negotiable is steps. Steps also matter, and they matter more than most people expect them to. Ploch and colleagues published a huge meta-analysis in the Lancet Public Health in 2022. They pooled 15 international cohorts for the analysis. Mortality risk kept dropping up to somewhere around 8 to 10,000 steps per day in adults under 60. For adults 60 and older, the benefit plateaued earlier, around 6 to 8,000 steps per day. You can hit that number without any fancy tracker, just by walking instead of driving to places you could reach on foot. I park further from the office on purpose, and I take walking phone calls instead of sitting ones. That's the whole of Tier Zero. In 5 habits you already know how to do. None of it costs you a cent, and it moves the biological needle further than any pill I'm about to describe. Let's get into the supplements now. Everything here is available over the counter, and each one has at least some real human data behind it. I run all 4 of these on a normal week, and none of them will empty your bank account. The first supplement is creatine. Creatine is the most researched supplement in sports science, and it turns out it also does things outside the gym. It helps your muscles store more energy for hard sessions. It also seems to support cognition and mood, especially when you are underslept. I take 5 grams of creatine monohydrate every single day. I mix it into my morning coffee, and I do not skip on rest days. The fancy versions on the shelf are marketing. Plain monohydrate is the version with the actual research behind it. The second supplement is omega-3. Omega-3 fats do quiet, structural work in your brain and cell membranes. Most modern diets do not deliver enough of them. Look for a product that lists EPA and DHA on the label. Don't just grab any fish oil. I take roughly 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day, split across meals. I keep my bottle in the fridge. The oil oxidizes when it sits warm on a shelf. Open the bottle and give it a smell. If it smells fishy, throw it out. Then pick a fresher brand instead. The third supplement is NMN or NR. This is the one that gets the most hype right now. Both NMN and NR are precursors that your body uses to make NAD+. The pitch itself is simple enough. If NAD+ drops with age, then topping it up should push you back toward younger biology. The honest reality is a little more complicated. Human trials so far show that both compounds do raise blood NAD+ levels reliably. What is much less clear is whether that raised NAD+ actually translates into slower aging in humans over years. Most of the sexy results still come from mice. I still take 500 milligrams of NMN in the morning on most days. I take it with a light breakfast and a small amount of fat. I think of it as a bet with reasonable odds, not as a proven intervention. And I keep an eye on the trial data every quarter. The fourth supplement is quercetin. Quercetin is a plant flavonoid that shows up in senolytic research. Senolytics are compounds that try to nudge those zombie cells I described earlier into finally dying. The published human work here is early, and I want you to hear that clearly. I run a light cyclical protocol on quercetin, not a daily one. I take 500 milligrams for 2 days in a row, and then I stop for the rest of the month. I am not going to tell you this is proven, because it is not. I will tell you that the mechanism is interesting and the safety profile at this dose looks reasonable. Let's talk about what Tier 1 actually costs. All 4 of these together run me somewhere between $40 and $70 a month, depending on brands and where I buy. That is real money over a year, but it is not a boutique clinic bill, and it stacks on top of Tier 0, which is doing the heavy lifting anyway. Now we get to the tier that gets the most attention on podcasts and the least attention from careful researchers. I want to walk through 3 of them because you will hear about them everywhere, and I want to explain why I watched them without running them yet. The first frontier is rapamycin. Rapamycin is a prescription drug that shuts down mTOR in a very direct way. In mice, it extends lifespan more reliably than almost any other intervention we know of. That is why serious longevity researchers keep circling back to it. The catch is that rapamycin is a real prescription drug with real side effects. It can suppress parts of your immune response, and the human dosing schedule is still an open research question. If you want to explore it, you need the right doctor. Find one who is actually experienced with off-label longevity dosing. Please consult your doctor before you consider this one. I personally do not take rapamycin. I keep a folder of trial updates. I will revisit when the human dosing picture gets clearer. The second frontier pushes past quercetin into other senolytics. The most talked about senolytic combination in research right now is dasatinib plus quercetin. Dasatinib is a drug developed specifically for certain types of leukemia. Researchers are studying the combination for its ability to clear those zombie cells I described earlier. The results in mice look striking. The results in humans are still very early, and the cancer drug in that combination carries risks you don't experiment with at home. Please consult your doctor before you consider anything on this branch. I am not running dasatinib myself. I run the light quercetin protocol I described in Tier 1, and I wait for cleaner human data on the combination. The third frontier is peptides. Peptides are short chains of amino acids that do specific signaling jobs. Names like BPC 157 and CJC 1295 come up in podcasts constantly. The pitch usually involves faster recovery or better sleep. The honest picture here is thin. Most peptides sold online are not regulated the way medicines are regulated. The purity of what shows up in the bottle is often unknown, and the long-term data on daily peptide use in healthy humans is basically not there yet. I do not run peptides myself. I would rather bank another year of clean training and clean sleep than chase a signal I cannot verify. Here's how I think about the whole frontier tier. Tier 2 works as a watch list, the stuff I track but haven't bought into yet. I read the new trials as they come out, and I let other people run the early experiments on themselves. When the human data gets loud enough, I will move something from this tier down into Tier 1. Until then, my money and my body stay on the boring stuff that already works. This is the section I would have wanted 6 months ago. The stuff I tried and then quietly dropped. I want to save you the money and the time. The first thing I dropped is resveratrol. Resveratrol got famous through David Sinclair, and it is often stacked with NMN in longevity bundles. I ran it for about 3 months and I saw nothing measurable. The bioavailability in humans is poor, and the strong results were mostly in mice at very high doses. I stopped buying it and I have not missed it. If your NMN product bundles it in for free, fine. I would not pay extra for it on its own. The second thing I dropped is high-dose gross antioxidant stacks. The old story was that antioxidants mop up damage and therefore slow aging. The newer story is more nuanced. Your body actually uses some oxidative stress as a signal to get stronger, especially after training. Blunting that signal with huge antioxidant doses right after a workout can dull your training adaptation. I dropped the giant vitamin C and vitamin E doses around my training. I still eat colorful plants because whole food antioxidants come packaged with fiber and cofactors. Isolated pills just don't have that. The third thing I dropped is extreme cold plunging. Cold plunging feels amazing, and I understand why the trend caught on. I ran a daily plunge for a full month. I tracked how I felt and how I trained. What I noticed is that ice baths right after a heavy lifting session seemed to slow things down. My muscles grew more slowly between sessions when I did that. The research on post-workout cold backs this up on muscle growth specifically. Multiple studies now show that cold water immersion after lifting blunts hypertrophy, that is, muscle size gains, quite consistently. The evidence on maximal strength is more mixed, so I am not going to overclaim there. I still take cold showers when I want a mood boost, but I no longer plunge inside the 4 hours after lifting, and my training has responded well to that one-time and tweak. The fourth thing I dropped is expensive proprietary blends. Any bottle with a proprietary blend on the label goes back on the shelf. If a company will not tell me the dose of each ingredient, I cannot compare it to the studies, and if I cannot compare it to the studies, I am paying for marketing. That covers everything I dropped along the way. There's one age group I haven't covered yet before we get to my daily protocol. You are honestly not too late. The mortality data is clear on this. People who start zone 2 and strength training in their 50s still bank real years back into their life. The entry points shift a little, but the direction is the same. The main change is that you probably need more warm-up before hard training, and you probably need more protein spread across the day to hold onto muscle. Talk to your doctor before the first heavy program, especially if you have any cardiac history in your family. Then start small and stack the wins week by week. Let me line it up in one plain block. Copy the parts that make sense for you. I wake up around 6:30 and I get real sunlight into my eyes within the first 30 minutes. I drink water with a pinch of salt before I touch coffee. I train zone 2 on Monday and Thursday, and I lift heavy on Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. My eating window opens around 9 and closes around 9 at night on most days. On the supplement side, I take creatine and omega-3 every day. I take NMN in the morning with a light breakfast. I run the light quercetin cycle 2 days a month. I do not take rapamycin, dasatinib, resveratrol, or peptides. I retest my biological age about every 6 months to see if the trend line is moving in the right direction. If this was useful, hit subscribe. I break down a new longevity protocol every week. The next video goes deep on the NMM and RE debate with the actual trial numbers. Drop a comment with the one tier 0 habit you already do well so I can see who is watching. And remember that I am not your doctor. Talk to yours before you touch anything on a label.